Yep, dollar bills, yo. Welcome to episode 5 of the Idiot's Odyssey. My name's Fergal O'Connor.
And I'm Eoin Murphy.
And here are this week's headlines. Josh Trank and Simon Kinberg have given their first interview on the Fantastic Four.
The Disney CEO Bob Iger brought us news on the Star Wars continuation.
Paul Feig's Ghostbusters movie has announced its cast list.
Terminator Genesis and Game of Thrones Season 5 trailers have been released.
Universal is eyeing up the John Wick director team for Cowboy Ninja Viking, starring Chris Pratt.
And speaking of Chris Pratt, he's also been rumoured as possibly the next Indiana Jones.
Emma Watson will star in Disney's live-action version of Beauty and the Beast. Robert Downey Jr. is set to terrify us with a movie about the USS Indianapolis disaster.
David Morrissey will star in the US version of The Driver. Anna Gunn will also star in the Criminal Minds spin-off, which has already cast Gary Sinise and Taylor James Williams.
For the second year running, a Hunger Games movie was top-grossing film in the US.
And speaking of the Hunger Games, Liam Hemsworth of the Hunger Games has been cast in Independence Day 2. Independence Day Forever, apparently.
Frances McDormand, Britt Marling, and Christian Slater after joining the cast of The Wife.
M. Night Shyamalan has spoken about his self-financing of The Visit, and he has said that how he wants to make Unbreakable 2.
Mission Impossible 5, The Ring 3, now titled Rings for some reason, and Paranormal Activity have all set release dates. And Barry Sonnenfeld's 9 Lives will star Kevin Spacey as a businessman who swaps bodies with a cat. Twice Oscar-winning Kevin Spacey is playing a cat. This is not a drill.
NBC have announced that they will be making a Problem Child TV show, and will be written by Scott Armstrong, who also wrote Old School.
Our top story tonight is about Josh Trank and Simon Kinberg finally breaking their silence over the Fantastic Four reboot. Trank himself said that the reason that things have been so quiet and there have been a lot of rumours about this was because he hates the fact that you know everything about a film before the films hit the cinemas.
Interesting thought.
Yeah, it's a noble goal.
Yeah, it's kind of impossible though these days, because what are you going to do? Keep everyone off Twitter and everything, and just do a media blackout?
Well, they referenced J.J. Abrams in terms of how he manages to keep things on set very quiet, and Christopher Nolan has the whole thing he does where where the script is kept very secure in. Honestly, I don't know what security
Probably
is.
just gives it to Michael Caine, yeah.
Yeah, it pretty much is. If you want the script, you will go through Michael Caine. So, let's see. Okay, first off, reasons why you should be excited about it. Trank made a name for himself with Chronicle. You might remember that. It was the found footage sci-fi film. Simon Kinberg produced and wrote X-Men Days of Future Past.
And he's going to be writing X-Men Apocalypse, isn't he?
And he will be writing X-Men Apocalypse. So this guy's got talent. The next bit of the interview I love because they name drop David Cronenberg. If you ever want to impress me, just name drop David Cronenberg. I don't care if we're talking about laundry, just throw his name in there somewhere. But the exact quote is, the film is heavily influenced by David Cronenberg, and Trank mentioned that Scanners and The Fly were big influence on the look of the film. Full confession time, I still haven't seen Scanners, and I don't know why, because I love 80s Cronenberg, like a Videodrome and The Fly. But the fact that they're mentioning The Fly excites me as a reference point. They go on to say the film is an origin story, no shit Sherlock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Ultimate Marvel Universe is an influence for anyone who's read the Ultimate Marvel Universe. I'm sure that will make sense to you.
I think it's more that I think they're going to get their power from experiments, is it? In this?
Yeah, I'm guessing.
The feel that I got from the trailer, you know.
Definitely, yeah. Plus, they mentioned that they were going for more of a hard sci-fi feel, which
that would make sense then, I suppose.
Exactly,
rather than the cosmic magic waves are hitting us.
Yeah, it's weird space radiation, man.
I don't know.
Okay, so
it's a thing, but it was very kind of. I don't think space radiation gives you special powers, I think it just kills you.
Yeah, I'm not willing to test that one out.
No.
Yeah. Although if it does give you special powers, like, sign me up for some space radiation.
Alright, calm down.
But he also mentioned that they've been very influenced by what Marvel has been doing regarding combined universes. But that it's going to be tricky to meld the Fantastic Four universe and the X-Men films.
Did they say they were going to try and do that?
They said, I think they'd like to, but the problem is that the X-Men films haven't referenced Fantastic Four at all, which is going to make it difficult to interview.
So when the timelines got switched around, the Fantastic Four popped up.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. You should probably call Josh Trank with that one.
Yeah, sure.
And here's my favourite quote from the interview. It's I'm just going to spiel off this full thing. I would say that the science fiction of it is a big thing that sets it apart from most of the other superhero genre films. I'm a huge David Cronenberg fan, and I always viewed Fantastic Four and the kind of weirdness that happens to these characters and how they're transformed to really fall in line more with a Cronenbergian science fiction tale of something horrible happening to your body and it transforming out of control. And the potential for a hard sci-fi take on that material makes me really excited. It makes me really excited too.
Where was this interview with?
It was, I think it popped up in Collider. The link will be, it'll be in the show notes for the podcast anyway, if anyone wants to get to the source material.
Okay.
But considering the rumours out of the Fantastic Four camp hadn't been great so far, this is actually really encouraging. I like everything that they're saying, but that's my take on it. I'm much more excited for this film than I was before I read the interview, and I'm really hoping that this turns out.
You never know; it might surprise us all. But the thing is, it has such low expectations already that if it's any good, people will be surprised.
Yeah, I dig what they're doing in terms of their take on the material.
Yeah, at least they're trying it. Now, moving on to Star Wars news, Disney CEO Bob Iger has said that Episode 7 will be worth the wait. He said that Episode 8 and Episode 9, which has unofficially been announced as being directed by Rian Johnson, will be released in 2017 and 2019 respectively. And that the film, Star Wars 9, will finish this trilogy, are his own words. He's also said, and this is the real news that surprised me, was next year, first standalone movie will be based on these characters. So that's really surprising.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't the idea...
This is, of course, this is actually from an interview from Get Your Geek On and Star Wars Underworld.
Yeah, I mean, there were rumours out there that they were, with those standalone films, they were going to be kind of running it back.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Boba Fett, standalone film and a young Han Solo film.
Yeah,
but apparently one of these is going to be about the characters that are actually in the trilogy that we're going to be experiencing next.
Now,
which is kind of odd because they already have 3 films, you know? How are these going to be separate from the trilogy?
Yeah, now, I think there are 2 approaches to that. One thing is that the Boba Fett thing was just nonsense thrown out by the Abrams camp.
Maybe people just really wanted it so much that they convinced themselves. I actually can't remember where I heard it from.
I think the other approach is if they're going to do the passing, maybe they're going to try and ground these characters in the universe and do the thing where they explore these characters' histories.
So they're going to explore the origins of these guys?
Yeah. Where it's like they make it feel like they were... part of the Star Wars universe.
So they're going to flash back, you think, to like episodes 4 to 6 and stuff.
That
would be dodgy to try and pull off.
Yeah.
They would be able to return like Vader and stuff, but that's just, I don't know.
They're probably just going to Photoshop them into episodes 4 and 6. Like they'll be there standing behind the Emperor.
That's George Lucas' version of it.
Yeah, that's how George Lucas works.
I like bringing back the origins of our first episode.
Yeah, more apologies to George Lucas.
This does sound interesting because he has said that episode 7 will be worth the wait, and you know, but to be fair, he's highly going to say, nah, it's shite. Yeah. You know, he's obviously going to say it's going to be worth the wait. So that's not really that surprising, and to be honest, that was really the only thing that surprised me about it.
I think J.J. Abrams has his hands on it. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, he'll be staying on a producer, I could imagine.
Yeah, plus those standalones, I think Josh Trank, who we were just talking about in that Fantastic Four story, is directing one of them.
Yeah, and Garrett Edwards is the other one.
Yeah, so I mean, they've got an all-star team of directors. I mean, if he's going to be excited about any bunch of directors making his films, it'll be this lot.
They've got a very good repertoire of directors around there.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not hard to see why.
Yeah. So, thumbs up for the director's choice for the Star Wars.
Yeah, we don't know which one will have which one. I don't think it's been officially announced, but we'll see, sure.
I don't know what to call the standalone films, though. Are we calling them sidequels or prequels or...
Standalone films, right?
Yeah. Now, moving on to Ghostbusters news. So, any of our fans who were around in the 80s are suddenly going to be getting very excited. Paul Feig's Ghostbusters movie has selected its cast, and it looks like they're after selecting some actresses with some kind of a pretty strong comedy pedigree. We've got Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, who you probably know best from Bridesmaids, the female hangover, I think, was it?
Yeah, that's probably appropriate.
Yeah, it was marketed as. And then we have Leslie Jones and Katie McKinnon, who are regular cast members of Saturday Night Live. Leslie Jones actually showed up in Chris Rock's Top 5 last year. Top 5 the movie, which was pretty well received. And that's kind of the core 4 of the cast. Now, all 4 of them are still working through negotiations, but they're expected to sign on and make it official. This looks like a lock for the top.
This looks fairly solid.
Core 4,
also, it was like the moment it was kind of said it was going to be a female cast, it was more or less like, yeah, Melissa McCarthy's probably going to be in it.
Yeah, because
and they were right.
I mean, back in the original Ghostbusters, I mean, you had Bill Murray and you had a core team of very strong comedy actors, so
exactly.
It feels like they're carrying on that tradition.
Yeah, well, they'd be fools not to,
Yep, dollar bills, yo.
In other news, Terminator Genesis has released its Super Bowl trailer. It's a 30-second one. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. A lot of action in it, and a lot of irony. I imagine that I would have assumed the film was going to have less irony in it, but to be fair, this was only 30 seconds long.
I don't know. I am worried for Arnold Schwarzenegger's health. I mean, he looks pretty rough. He looks like he's been sleeping behind a dumpster.
Well, yeah. What I'm confused about is that it has him fighting himself, right? Younger himself, right?
Yes.
And it also has him fighting the liquid metal one, right?
Yep.
But weren't they like years apart, or what's going on? Because the evil one, time travel, yeah.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
I'm just going to answer that with those 2 words.
Yeah.
It's time travel is
also,
a lot like magic.
I'm not sure if we've covered this already, but apparently it has been kind of announced or whatever that he is still playing a Terminator, right? He's not playing the human version of it or something, right? But apparently these Terminators they actually age.
Yeah, and oh boy, do they age. Because
to be fair, considering his age, he still looks pretty good,
I know it looks like someone hung an Arnold Schwarzenegger Halloween costume on a skeleton.
Anyway,
yeah.
What did you think of the trailer?
I thought it had lots of explosions and things going boom.
Yeah, well, in 30 seconds we got a lot of fire, but at least they didn't get the way the plot like some films do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can get excited about this. I mean, nothing convinced me that Emilia Clarke can pull off Sarah Connor.
I think she could. This has a similar feel to the same way I feel about Fantastic Four film, in that it could be, it could come under the radar because no one has any hopes for these things.
Yeah, and I mean, nobody has any hopes for Terminator Genesis now. I mean, it looks pretty.
It's ambitious to try and reboot a timeline, but it's a case of like, do you really want to have to resolve this every time?
Yeah, well, I like the way that in the trailer, at least, they really referenced the Kyle Reese scene from the first Terminator, where he was sneaking through the department store, getting some clothes.
And we also had the Game of Thrones Season 5 trailer, but it wasn't released by Game of Thrones or by HBO. It was kind of just recorded and leaked.
Yeah, they didn't actually pipe this one out to the internet. They showed this one.
They knew it was going to happen.
They definitely, they showed it before IMAX screenings of Game of Thrones, and I think they knew that if you were going to see an IMAX screening of Game of Thrones, you would cream yourself over 2 seconds of Jon Snow's left eyebrow. So they didn't have to give anyone that much. They just they showed a bunch of fun looking stuff. There were some good lines. It's you
get a kind of feel of what the direction may be for the next season.
Yeah, I feel like it was a bunch of snatches. I mean, it's. I stand by what I said. It was just a bunch of little snatches of the thing, which I suppose is pretty much the definition of a trailer.
Yeah.
But,
It was 2 minutes long, but it's
Yeah.
it's worth it. It was worth the watching.
yeah, at least the next season of Game of Thrones is going to look pretty. And moving on to a whole bunch of Chris Pratt news this week. Universal is after securing the director team who did John Wick to direct Chris Pratt's next sort of comic book vehicle, which is actually called Cowboy Ninja Viking. No, I am not making this up.
Lord.
Yep, Cowboy Ninja Viking.
What's it based on? Is it actually based on a comic book? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. It's I think the source material is a graphic novel. But they're after bringing in David Leitch and Chaz Stahelski, who directed John Wick last year, which was absolutely fantastic. It was sort of a stripped-down action film with a sense of humour.
Yeah.
But the story follows a man who suffers from multiple personality disorder and is put into a government program to be turned into a super soldier with the attributes of a cowboy, a ninja, and a Viking.
How the hell did they figure that out? As in, what was this? A random lottery of and he's going to be a cowboy. Yay!
I'm just looking forward to the sequel, Cowboy Ninja Viking 2, Cowboy Ninja Viking Pirate.
Oh,
Yeah. It's got Chris Pratt and it's got two directors who I love the last thing they did behind it. So I'm intrigued to see where this one goes.
Is this going to be a comedy or is it going to be straight action
Well, it's got Chris Pratt in it, so I think you could safely assume there's going to be a comedy. Plus, it is called Cowboy Ninja Viking.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, but sure.
Yeah, you cannot play this one straight.
In other Chris Pratt news, anyway, he's been heavily linked with being the next generation of Indiana Jones. This is an interesting one, isn't it?
This seems like a perfect piece of casting. I mean,
well, theoretical casting, whatever.
Yeah, a perfect piece of theoretical casting, if it's true, maybe.
I mean, I just wonder, is he a little too goofy for it? And is he kind of the go-to for every kind of this kind of role now from now on, or what?
Well, I mean, Indiana Jones was always pretty goofy. I mean, think about the sword fight scene where that guy pulls out his sword and then Indiana Jones just shoots him.
But there's a difference between suave and efficient than the character in than his character Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, well, I feel like he could pull off the suave. I mean,
do you think he can pull off the serious though? Apparently, you don't.
Serious? I think he could do it. I haven't seen him do it yet, but I mean, comedy actors in general. I mean, comedy is very tough to do. If you could do comedy, then you could probably do serious, at least somewhat.
Right, maybe.
I'm not saying he's going to win any Oscars, but I think Chris Pratt can pull this off.
Well, there are other actors that I'd like to see in the role. I wouldn't mind seeing Fassbender in the role or something. That would be great, I think.
Fassbender's your solution to everything.
It's not my solution to everything. It's just he'd be right for this character. Okay.
What part would Michael Fassbender not be right for? He's the male Meryl Streep, the dreamy male Meryl Streep.
I think the fact that this was mentioned by Christian Herloff of Smoke's Nose, and after he said that, I was like, yeah, he's perfect for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. All I'm going to say is that when I saw Guardians of the Galaxy for the first time, and I saw the first 10 minutes, all I could think of during that whole scene was...
I can see what you're thinking of there, yeah.
That was the most Indiana Jones in space scene that I've ever seen in my life.
I think, in my opinion, there's only... I would have only one of those two. As in, they're the only two really in the radar for me.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And they both be brilliant fits, I think. I'm just saying, I don't think that Chris Pratt is the only option for the role.
Yeah, assuming Michael Fassbender wants to be Indiana Jones. And to be fair, everyone wants to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah, why not, sure.
Next up, perverts everywhere rejoiced as Emma Watson was announced to be starring as Belle in Disney's live-action version of Beauty and the Beast. And then they just completely lost interest when they found out that Bill Condon, who directed the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn,
God, no.
and The Fifth Estate, will direct the whole thing.
I just hope they don't do with this what they kind of did with Maleficent, where it was just like, where they revisited that world and it just like, that was, yeah.
I'm sure there were some people...
As in they changed the entire idea of like, this character is very, very evil, and then they went back and it's just like, no, she has a good reason. And you're just like, what's the point of that?
Well, no, it's an interesting take on a character. I feel like Maleficent may have had other execution issues.
Yeah.
This one...
But the thing is,
like,
in this
Emma
one,
Watson is a piece of good news. She's a good actress. Yeah. So I suppose, well done, Disney fans. You've got one good thing to look forward to in your film. Assuming the Twilight guy doesn't screw it all up.
Oh, I wonder how he would possibly do that.
Okay, we're going to need some more sparkles on the beast. Robert Downey Jr.'s Downey Films is producing a movie about the USS Indianapolis sinking. Which, if you haven't heard about the USS Indianapolis sinking, it was a ship that delivered the nuclear bomb that hit Hiroshima. But on the way back, it was hit by...
it sunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, go on.
Spoilers. It was hit by missiles. And then, because it was on a secret mission, they couldn't exactly give out their location. So the crewmen spent 5 days floating in the water, which was infested with sharks.
Wasn't this referenced in Jaws, yeah?
This was referenced in Jaws. If anyone's seen Jaws, perhaps one or two of you might have, then you might remember when Quint, the crazy old shark guy, referenced that time he was on the USS Indianapolis, and the sharks started picking off his friends one by one. Now, the weird thing is they're approaching the material because they're not going in from the obvious, let's tell a story about men getting picked apart by sharks. The film is set in 1996, and it tells a story of 11-year-old Hunter Scott who needed a project which to complete a National History Day contest. So he, after seeing Jaws, he decided to do a project on the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, and he discovered that Captain Charles McVeigh, who was court-martialed following the sinking, might actually have been a massive hero, which I honestly don't know what to make of this. Number one, because if Boyhood taught me anything, it's the kids annoy the hell out of me.
I thought this is a kind of a well-known fact that you don't have kids in a film unless it's absolutely 100% necessary.
I mean, like, this strikes me more as a heartwarming coming-of-age tale, and God knows I hate heartwarming coming-of-age tales, so, we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully there'll be some shark attacks in it.
Who's set to direct, sorry?
It's Tate Taylor, the guy who directed The Help.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Now, David Morrissey will be going back to America to star in the US version of The Driver. Now, there was a UK version of The Driver, which aired on BBC, but it was a mini-series, a 3-episode mini-series. But this is going to be an actual full-time series, right? And this is Showtime. And it's written by the same guy who wrote the UK TV series, and that's Danny Brocklehurst. But it's also going to have the executive producer, the same guy who brought you Justified, and it's Taylor Elmore. And that's very interesting. And
yeah, I think the plot of this one is about a taxi driver who slowly gets dragged into the underworld.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on that whole world. And it has a lot of potential because apparently the UK version was very well received.
Yeah, I mean, it's got what seems like a solid team behind it.
And of course, this is the same David Morrissey who was the governor in The Walking Dead.
Yeah, as we all know, that guy's got charisma coming out of his eyeballs.
Yeah, he's very, very good. And speaking of US versions of UK shows, Anna Gunn, who recently featured in the US version of the UK Broadchurch, which was called Grace Point, has now got her next TV show project lined up, and it'll be in the Criminal Minds spin-off, which has already got Gary Sinise and Tyler James Williams in it. And it's going to be about Americans abroad kind of thing who are in crisis and trouble, right?
Yeah.
I think it's in like war-torn kind of areas or something. Yeah. But to be honest, I don't really know too much about it. But I just hope it doesn't go the same way that the last Criminal Minds show went, spin-off show went, which was Criminal Minds Suspect Behaviour, because that just went to shit after one season.
Yeah, I mean, Criminal Minds is one of those shows like The Mentalist or Law and Order or CSI, in that I just I know that they have differentiating factors, but I don't care to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Plus, they're following the same pattern where CSI is CSI Miami and CSI New York, and they're probably setting up a CSI.
There's a CSI Cyber as well, isn't there?
A CSI Cyber.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, I haven't really watched much of it, but it's exactly what you'd expect it is. I mean, she's very good. This is Anna Gunn, of course, who was in Breaking Bad as well beforehand, and so she's got some chops on her.
I guess we'll see how that goes. Perhaps this thing will blossom from its.
Yeah, because it's got a very strong cast, so hopefully, maybe they've learned the mistakes of Suspect Behaviour.
Yeah, and like all those different Law and Order spin-offs. Moving on to box office news, The Hunger Games has topped the American box office for the second year in a row, which is completely unheard of. It's the first time a franchise has ever done this.
Really?
Yeah. Plus, the last time a movie featuring a female lead earned the domestic box office kind of a top spot was The Exorcist in 1971. I guess The Hunger Games is bringing in the crowds again.
Yeah, this isn't surprising at all, to be honest.
And thanks to splitting it up into 2 parts, they still have another film to go.
Yep, they freaking do. Speaking of the Hunger Games, Liam Hemsworth, who's also starred in the Hunger Games, of course, has been really eyed and rumoured to be getting one of the lead roles in Independence Day 2, Independence Day Forever. And this is interesting, because we haven't seen anything about it. We haven't seen that much about Independence Day 2.
Yeah, what do we know so far? That Will Smith's not coming back.
Yeah,
and that Roland Emmerich is.
It's weird in that he's making a sequel to a film that's been gone for coming up to 20 years, right?
Yeah. And
he's also, once Independence Day 2 is done, he's going to start doing the remake of his own film Stargate. Between that and episode and this third Independence Day film, it's a weird one.
Yeah, I think this is.
So he's going to have his hands full very soon from his old projects, basically. Yeah,
this is Roland Emmerich. I don't know. Is this him admitting that he's run out of ideas?
He's revisiting ideas. I think the thing is that it's universally kind of acknowledged that Independence Day was basically a kind of a sequel to Stargate, but he kind of didn't have the rights to it anymore or something,
Yeah,
that's the kind of feel that a lot of people make out of it.
Yeah, I can see the parallels.
If he had made a Stargate 2 at the time, it would have been Independence Day. Is basically the idea.
Yeah, and now he has to make them separately.
So now he's making them separately.
I guess it does kind of suggest that he has a certain amount of pride in the projects, maybe. And
I would like to see Stargate do well in this, with back in the original creator's hands. But I really love this TV series, so
Yeah, it's we'll see how this one turns out.
Yeah, hopefully, I hope for it anyway. But the fact that he's cast Liam Hemsworth in the role for Independence Day 2 is good news, because he's good, a solid enough actor, and
yeah, he's a solid dude. Like,
exactly.
Moving on to stories that probably only I will give a shit about. Frances McDormand, Britt Marling, and Christian Slater have joined the cast of The Wife.
Good casting, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't give a damn about this film until I heard that Frances McDormand, who's an amazing actress, Britt Marling, who was in Another Earth and The East, and Christian Slater, who I haven't seen very much at all lately, and that seems like an oversight.
I think he's been doing a bit of TV work.
Well, nice to see him back in front of the film cameras then. It's starring Glenn Close as the wife of a biographer who decides to leave him on the eve of him winning his Nobel Prize.
That's not the time you bail.
Yeah, so it sounds like some pretty deep material, serious material, maybe. Which, I mean, the director is a Swedish director who I basically I can't even understand the names of his films, so I'm completely unqualified to say.
Has he done English films before? English language films before?
I'm not sure. I gave his filmography a quick scan, and I think everything was in Swedish. But that being said, Sweden's been giving us.
Yeah, they do crop out some good films, like.
Yeah, plus they gave us Hefstrom and Thomas Alfredson, I think, in the last few years. So, you know, the Swedish talent pool's pretty deep. So, hopefully this will turn out well, because...
Sure, it's got a cast... He attracted a decent cast, so maybe he can.
Exactly, yeah. I'm very excited to see all these actors in a room together, basically.
Okay. And moving on to M. Night Shyamalan news, after his flops, he's saying that he's trying to get around the studios, but they're not financing him anymore. He's got his latest film, his latest project, The Visit, is being self-financed. Now, we did do an interview with this, and where he spoke not only about the self-financing stuff, but also about possibly returning to Unbreakable with Unbreakable 2. But
he's really gonna have to wow people if he wants anyone to ever give a shit about anything he does again.
I don't think After Earth was completely his fault. I think he was based. You know, he was the director, but he was being told to direct it in such a way by Will Smith. So you know, we can't really say how much it was his fault, really.
Yeah, let's just. We all hope to see like a plucky underdog come back. I hope this is one of those stories, as opposed to M. Night Shyamalan blowing all his money and disappearing off into a cardboard box somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, and moving on to the release date portion of the podcast, Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible 5 has been moved forward to July 31st, which...
Really? That's nearly, like, what, five months pulled back, is it?
Yeah, it's...
supposed to be released on Christmas Day originally, wasn't it?
Sometime around then, yeah, but... that was putting it right into the Star Wars danger zone. So there are two ways to look at this. One is that they're really excited about the film and they want to maximise its chances of success by giving it a prime summer release window. Or the other thing is they think it's crap and there's no way it can stand up to Star Wars.
Well, the thing is that it is kind of a summer blockbuster kind of film. Surely.
Yeah.
And so it's probably... They will obviously, if they're asked, they're going to say it's that. But also, you know, the other times is more like if you're trying to go for awards and stuff, and you know, they're obviously not going to try and bother with that. Like,
yeah, I mean, the December release window is generally for awards films, and I know you'll get the odd blockbuster that kind of just hangs out around that end of the year for some reason, but. I feel like July 31st, it seems like the absolute sweet spot for a Mission Impossible film. It just makes a lot more sense. I mean, Christopher McQuarrie's directing it, so I still have high hopes for this one. And for horror fans, we have a few more release dates. Paramount is finally after setting a release date for The Ring 3 after absolutely years of delays. The film is now titled Rings because no one can actually count anymore. Yeah, I feel like for all the kind of stick that the Hollywood Ring films get, I mean, Hideo Nakada's originals, and this is going to sound like heresy, I think Hideo Nakada is kind of a hack.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I mean, look, he spent his career, it's like he directed these two horror films that were remade, and this is probably, I'm not making any friends saying this, I think Gore Verbinski did a much better job with the Ring material than Nakada did. I mean, The Ring and Dark Water were just these weird...
Are you saying that the American version was better than the...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I am signing my own death warrant. Because, I mean, like, Dark Water and The Ring, they were just these weird kind of sexist films with these protagonists that didn't really go... the protagonists had no drive. They were just there to kind of scream at things until such time as they were compelled to take action. Yeah. I mean, they weren't great. I feel like the American remakes were, and I mean, like, obviously they were kind of big, goofy special effects versions of it, but They were
Maybe,
just better
Is
handled.
this not a thing of like different cultures and stuff?
I don't know, man. It's just they're really sexist. They're really, really sexist.
So yeah, different cultures.
Yeah. Just to carry on, my Hideo Nakata is a hack argument. After directing those films, he directed El Save the World, which, if you haven't heard of that, it was because it was the sequel to live action version of Death Note, and it was I've seen it. It's sub direct to video material. I mean, he's after kind of fading off the map, and I'm not that sad about it.
But he doesn't have any involvement in Rings.
Not that I know. More for the horror fans. Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension has been moved from March the 13th to October 23rd, so they're after moving it into
Halloween.
Halloween, yeah. And Friday the 13th has been moved from November 13th to May the 13th.
No, that's just weird.
No word yet on whether May 13th is a Friday.
Nope, it was a Wednesday.
Okay, so they I just don't know what to think of that.
Come on, as in you had a Friday, why would you move it from Friday?
I'm sure there's some sort of reason behind it, besides voodoo or, counting the entrails of chickens or something. And moving on to Kevin Spacey's next project, where he will be moving on from playing the President of America to portraying a cat, or rather a businessman who swaps bodies with a cat in Barry Sonnenfeld's 9 Lives.
Is this a live action or what? Or is it
Well, it's Barry Sonnenfeld, so I'm assuming it's live action. This is the guy who brought us Men in Black 2 and 3, so he's a guy who likes his special effects.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not an add-on though.
Yeah, the plot is Spacey starring as a workaholic businessman who suffers a terrible accident that leaves him trapped in the body of the family cat.
So does that mean the cat's walking around in his body or what? Or do we just ignore that?
I honestly don't know what to make of this. I mean, Barry Sonnenfeld gave it the most generic description I've possibly ever heard in my life, in that he called the script a funny, emotional, commercial comedy. Number one, it's a comedy, okay? The funny should be implied there. Number two, emotional. It's a film about a guy in a cat's body.
So is the cat gonna cry?
I don't quite know yet. I can only assume that like Andy Serkis wasn't available or something. But I mean, if there's one guy who can make a cat cry out there, it's Andy Serkis. Yeah, I just I don't know where they're going with this. It seems like a paycheck job more than anything.
You can only take every word of that and just like tear it apart, like the commercial part.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, don't get me started. I mean, if you're describing your film as commercial, I mean, what kind of cynical description is that? I mean, was he describing it to his accountant? Like, what was going on there?
As in, is it poking fun at? Is it kind of satirical in the way it pokes fun at commercialization? I don't know. It's just a weird one.
I mean, it's just such a weird, like, ghost dad, or like that film about that guy who comes back as a snowman after he dies.
Jack Frost?
Yes, Jack Frost. It's such an overtold tale, and I really wonder what they've seen in this that makes them think that they can do anything different besides a check with a big load of zeros on it.
Yeah, it's gonna drag in the family audience, I'd say, in a
Yeah, I think the body swap comedy, I mean, it's
at its day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Rob Schneider doesn't get jobs anymore for a reason.
And finally, in NBC news, a Problem Child TV show has been given a green light. Now, it's going to be written by Scott Armstrong, who wrote Old School. But this is going back to the 90s cartoon... not cartoon series, but a film series about a problem child. And I think it was like the first one was in 1990, the second one was in 1991, and I don't know and I don't care when the third one was. But this is just... I mean, why do they have to do this? Why do they have to take something that was in the 90s, was in the 80s or whatever, and just try and remake it?
Well, maybe they had a concept for something like this, and then they decided that they didn't want to get sued by the problem child people, one, and number two, maybe they'll attract an audience of the 10 people who still have any interest in problem child.
I mean, this is kind of the same idea of 12 Monkeys. There was a the 12 Monkeys movie, and now there's
Yep.
like a 12 Monkeys show out now on Sci-Fi Channel, I think, right? Now, although admittedly, apparently that's actually quite good, but that's not really the point, you know?
Yeah,
Why? As in, like, are they out of original ideas, you know?
maybe they're just out of names. Maybe they just needed to borrow the Problem Child name.
Maybe. I mean, it is a fairly generic idea, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like the comedy version of The Yeoman, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly it. And I guess that's that for us. This has been the Idiot's Odyssey, new episode 5. I've been Owen Murphy, and you can find me on Twitter at OwenM1990.
And I'm Fergal O'Connor. You can find me on Twitter at Interspammer.
And you can also find Idiot's Odyssey on Twitter at Idiot's Odyssey, or Facebook, Idiot's Odyssey. And you can also email us at idiotsodysseypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also find us online at idiotsodyssey.com.
Thanks very much for listening.